Liftoff of mission 41D, first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Welcome to the Health or High Water Podcast.
Hello, guys. Welcome to Health or High Water Podcast, the fascinating exploration into the world of health and wellness and the intersection of mental, physical, and spiritual journey of life. I'm your host, Trip Parks, and always joined by the great Brett Hutari.
Hello.
It's our goal here to bring you innovative ideas, content, and stories from professionals in the industry, and today is no different. Today we have a very special guest, Nandi Camille. Nandi is a life coach and brings many years of experience guiding, advertising, and mentoring people from all walks of life. Grab some coffee, sit tight, and get ready for our 20th edition of Health or High Water. Hey, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, thanks. I found you on Instagram, and you just look like you got your shit together.
No, I appreciate that. That's actually why I became a life coach, because at one point in my life, I actually thought I did. So I can do this.
Well, that's the best for your brand, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You got your life coach. You got an amazing podcast that just reached 10,000 downloads.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah, no, we love that here. You know, it's a success with podcasting. You're doing it yourself, and you're making it your own, and you're no different. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got here?
Absolutely. Well, as you said, thank you so much for the introduction, by the way. I'm a life coach. I focus on helping entrepreneurial women help themselves. It's kind of my mission, helping people help themselves. So helping them get over those limiting beliefs, those subconscious things that we don't even notice that we're saying to ourselves that are keeping us from showing up the way we want to. All of us have dreams that are placed on our heart, and I think some of us are more inclined to just going towards them. And other people have anxiety, depression, things that just get in the way, or just everyday thoughts. I can't, I'm too old, I'm too young, I've never done this before. That just keeps us stuck, and what I call that is out of alignment. And so what I do is I help my clients get back into alignment. It's that off feeling. If you go to my website, I ask, do you have the itch? It's that itchy feeling that you have every day where you wake up and something isn't right. Something isn't sitting well. I want change. I want something different. And I just need help bridging that gap. So helping my clients do that work.
Women focused only. Some men, I think.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So I've had my next door neighbor. I call her my neighbor bestie. We're not neighbors anymore, but still call her neighbor bestie. Her brother, she said, "Hey, could you mentor or coach my brother?" I said, "Absolutely." So I'm always open to men. I just market towards entrepreneurial women.
So what got you? Give us the origin story. What got you inspired into this journey? How did you get into this?
Yeah, I started on the Ropes Challenge course in Boca Raton, Florida. My husband makes fun of me when I say Boca Raton, but it's funny if you directly translate that. It means rat's mouth. Not a lot of people know that. Yeah,
Rat's mouth.
Rat's mouth. Boca Raton means rat's boca mouth. Raton. Rat. Rat's mouth. But it's such a beautiful place. It's a gorgeous place. And so anyway, I digress.
You guys are really in for some education today.
Exactly.
I love it.
When I went to college, I wanted a job. It was my first year there. And so I go to the rec center. I loved health and wellness. I was a dancer in high school. And go to the Ropes Challenge course. They're like, who wants to work outside? And I raise my hand. And I make the joke that we were in Florida. And they're like, who wants to work outside? Me. We only have 2 seasons, hot and hotter. But I love being outside. And so I was like, I'm all for it. Turns out I ended up being a belay master, which is sending people up and down Ropes Challenge course walls. But then what I fell in love with was the facilitator part of the Ropes Challenge course. And what that was working with halfway homes, ESPN, Jamba Juice, leaders, all sorts of different groups that needed to focus on leadership, communication. If you're a halfway home, it's, how do I communicate better? Do I feel like I'm using my voice in this group? Those sorts of things. And I fell in love with it. I was like, what is this? We're talking about leadership. We're talking about communication. We're talking about feelings. What is this? And I didn't have the name coaching at the time, but I graduated college. I ended up moving out here to Colorado. And I joined Pure Barre. I was part of the Pure Barre team. We went out to our annual retreat, and the owner brought in a life coach. And we're all sitting around making vision boards, talking about our lives and our desires and what we want. And that was the light bulb moment for me. It brought in everything from the ropes course, all of my loves and desires. And I was just like, this is what I want to do. I want to talk about people's dreams. I want to talk about what they really want. I want to talk about small talk anymore. I want to talk about playing small. I want to talk about what do you really want and what is getting in your way from getting there. So that's what started it. It's a mix of that ropes course and then my childhood and then moving out here just all brought it together, and here we are.
Absolutely love that. It's it's almost kind of like my favorite poem of all time is Robert Frost, The Path Least Followed.
Yeah.
And, taking the responsibility of being a life coach, almost being a GPS for humans.
Absolutely.
So what you have clients you're working with now? What do you? What's like the main focus that you're doing? Is it helping them to see, like, find what they truly want to do with their lives? Is it like digging into past trauma? Is it all of the above? What's going on?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit of all of the above, and that's the kind of the funky thing about being a life coach. I'm very similar to a therapist, but because when you see people think therapists are like, I'm feeling bad, I'm going to go see a therapist. It doesn't matter what you're feeling bad about, I'm going to go see them. Versus when you think life coaches, there's a lot of niches out there, which is beautiful and wonderful. I am a wide spectrum coach, though. Life coach, your whole life. What is going on with your job? What is going on with your relationship? So I'll have women that come to me that I want to start a business. Okay, cool. And we start asking, what's the business you want to start? Well, I think I want to be a content creator. Okay, cool. So we start to dig into that. And then we find out that they're also dealing with some drama with their boyfriend. They're dealing with some self-esteem stuff at work. They're not using their voice at work, which is now translating into not using their voice in their business, which is why they're not showing up. So it's a whole spectrum of really doing the digging and the work of knowing yourself. And so I get to help my clients know themselves better. We already know ourselves, but we don't always trust ourselves. We're not always taught to trust ourselves growing up, and so that's where I come in.
So what are some questions that you use to really get to know people and get to the bottom of their problems?
I think it's a lot simpler than we make it out to be. It's very like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Asking that question again and again, because somebody will give you a surface level answer, or they'll give you the answer that their parent told them. I want to be a doctor because that's what my parents told me, and I'm naturally good at it, and I don't get squeamish around blood, so that's what I want to do. But you dig a little deeper, and there's usually an and there, or there's a but there. And I want to be a musician, and I want to go horseback riding, or it's a but I kind of want to do this instead, but I've never done it before. So it's really just, what do you want? That's kind of the heart of what I do.
That's really interesting because we go through kind of the same thing with personal training and nutrition stuff. Well, I want a good body. I want to look like this. I want this. And I always ask that first, like, what do you want? Yeah. And then I follow up with, okay, what do you need?
Exactly.
Okay, what do you need to make this work? Do you need a low AC1 levels? Make sure that you're not pre-diabetic. It's like there's checklists we get done with the needs before we get to the wants.
You know what's crazy is therapist is kind of like there's still therapists out there, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of a stigmatized industry. You go to a therapist because something's wrong with you. And life coach is kind of different. Life coach you go to because you want to be inspired and you want to find something. It's an interesting intersection that we've kind of moved into.
Absolutely. I'd say that there's a spectrum amongst both.
Yeah, and you don't have to have, here's another thing maybe, I get your take on too, is that there's a lot of degrees out there, but I think, you and I talked about this, having this skill set to be good at what you do and to be direct, right? How often do you see clients complicating their issues?
All the time. I had one of my favorite examples is I was texting a client and she was like, my boss wants me to do something and I don't want to do it. And how do I say no? I said, say no. I mean, really, we complicate it because but if I say no, then they're going to not like me or then they're not going to want this. So it's a lot of people pleasing that we have to get around too. We want to be liked, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be liked. You go all the way back to cave times, the tribe. We needed each other to survive. If you got kicked out of the tribe, you were going to die, right? And so we're wired that way. And so our brain is like, if this person doesn't like me, I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe and I'm going to die. We may not be operating that consciously, but subconsciously we are. And that's what keeps us from, I don't want to say no, because then I'm going to cut off that connection and that's going to make me uncomfortable. That's going to make them uncomfortable. I'd rather be just uncomfortable and say yes rather than say what I really want and risk the relationship or risk them saying something I don't like or risk being uncomfortable. That risk is too great. And so it's getting over that and realizing that, hey, that person's allowed to be disappointed. It's okay if you're uncomfortable. You will be okay. That discomfort, it's like what you all do. When you're lifting the weight, right? That is uncomfortable. Lifting that weight is uncomfortable and it's in alignment. It's exactly what you want to build that muscle. And it's painful at the same time. So that's the work.
That's so well said too. It's you know, people pleasing is something we see all the time, and they're the best people in the world because they truly have the bigger hearts.
Yeah.
They're usually mothers, right? They're usually taking care of other people. They take care of everybody but themselves.
Yeah.
And so listening to what you were saying is like you're helping them redevelop the relationship with themselves,
Yes,
strengthening, gaining respect for themselves. Wow.
As well as I think to add to that too is like there's a ton of social norms like that from like, back in the past of like work days is like you don't say no to your boss.
Yeah.
You get there early, you get there late. And like you're challenging social norms that are ingrained not only in people but society and generational work.
Yes.
I grew up in a blue collar home. It's like if you're not 15 minutes early, you're 15 minutes late.
Absolutely.
It's like, when your shift starts at 9, you can get there at 9.
It sounds like my dad, by the way.
Yes.
To this day, I am not late for anything, and I've realized there's two people in this world, and I'm one of them.
You're either there early or you're.
If I'm not early, I'm like get all nervous and go good.
Yep.
Yeah, those social norms that are ingrained in us, and that's
Absolutely.
stuff we deal with too with like foods. It's like, well, I follow the food pyramid. It's like, well, that hasn't been accurate in years.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And being able to think on your own, I think that's really independent thinking is what I want to help to encourage as well. That's part of trusting yourself, right? If you have an idea, if you have an inkling, if you have a gut feeling, this isn't for me, this is for me, I'm being drawn to this, to lean in, to trust that a little bit more. I think so many times, and it's well-intentioned, like you're saying, we reach out and we ask our friends and our family, we ask everybody around us, what should I do? What should I do? What do you think you should do? Have you tried just trusting yourself for a little bit? Have you tried literally just trusting yourself? You know what to do. And that's 99% of it. All of us know exactly what to do. We're just not doing it because we don't trust ourselves or we need somebody else to confirm it for us.
So like, I guess that's kind of bridging on accountability. At this
absolutely.
Point, right? So
Yeah.
how do you approach accountability? Because that is like 99%. Of what we do is trying to teach accountability, get people on schedules, make sure that their lifestyle is changing, not just in the gym, but out.
Yeah.
So how do you approach accountability?
Yeah, a variety of different ways. I think when we're talking lifestyle, when we go back to that question of what do you want, it's building that image out. So when I first work with a client, I did this the other day, we do a wheel of life. And wheel of life is, just going through the different areas of your life, recreation, spirituality, health and fitness, romantic relationships, familiar relationships. How would you rate each of these areas of your life? There's a few more categories. Right now, is it on a scale of 1 to 10? Is it a 5? I do not feel connected to this, or is it a 10? This area feels great. So we go through the whole life there, and then from there we start to pull out. Okay, what would make this a 10? And that gives us our stepping stones, right? If you rated a 6 in career because you're unhappy with your work, you don't like your boss, and you want more community, what would make it a 10? I want a more collaborative space. I want to make more money, and I want teammates that I actually want to see. Right? We get really clear on those, and then that helps me hold them accountable to that. And again, that brings it back to them trusting themselves. I haven't told them anything. I've told them nothing. I've only asked them, what do you want and what's going to get you to it? I'm just guiding them to themselves.
You're making it quantifiable at that point.
Exactly.
Really.
Yes.
I picture what you're doing as a professional soundboard. Like you're just the mirror that is shining. You're not making a decision for anybody.
Nope.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you never tell any of your clients what to do. They figure you are bouncing these ideas back off of them. It's
100%.
wow.
Yeah.
Human
I love that
GPS.
you said the mirror though too, because that's exactly what I say in calls. I'm like, okay, I'm going to mirror this back to you. And then they get to see it like, oh, I was thinking that thought. Oh, that came out of my mouth. I'm like, yeah, it did. Whether it's something that serves them or not. It's like, did you know that you were thinking? They're just like, oh my gosh, no, I didn't. That's amazing. Or, oh my gosh, no, I didn't. I'm ready to think a new thought. I don't want to think that anymore.
Wow, this reminds me, we just did a seminar and workout for a community in the area that was focused on breathing and posture.
Yeah.
Let's tie this into that too, because people don't realize their posture, how important it is. I mean, it has a ton of effects, but they don't realize how they walk and what that says about themselves. But as trainers, I can tell so much about somebody from the way they walk.
Yeah.
I can tell where their injuries are at. I can tell where their pain points are at, probably what their next injury is going to be. And that's probably some of what you're seeing too when you're looking at these people. It's just fascinating to find that intersection.
When you said that, my brain went mental posture is what I'm going to look for. It's like, what is your mental posture? How are you sitting upright? Or do you feel proud as you're walking through your day? Or are you walking around energetically or you're hunched over energetically? And that also reminds me of Amy Cuddy. Her book is Presence. And she has the phrase starfish up, which is like reaching your extremities out and making a starfish out of your body, and how that just standing like a starfish will start to make you feel better 100%. And so I'm listening for your mental posture. Are you starfishing up mentally, or are you coming into yourself, being small? And that's okay. That's a safety posture. I'm trying to keep myself safe. I'm tight. But how do we get you to a place where you're mentally and physically more expansive?
Well, I love that you said that, because we're getting in the realm of speaking. Like, we just had the speaking event yesterday. We just finished a book that we're going to start speaking on too. And the way you stand on stage says a lot about what you're about to say, right? Like having your hands in the middle of has a more powerful stance than having your hands in your pocket. You don't have your hands in your pocket at all when you're speaking. You know, so those things project what you're going to say before you even say them too.
Absolutely.
So there's so many parallels with that and intersections here. I love that.
Who are these people that are coming? Describe. I mean, they run the gamut, I guarantee. But describe these people that are coming to you. What are they looking for? Where are they at in their life?
I'd say I usually attract women that are either building a business or building within a business. So I have one client where she's working on building $1 million book of business right now. She is an employee, but she has no desire to work for somebody else. This is truly in alignment for her. And what her next goal is career-wise is to build $1 million in her book of business, right? But we're also, yesterday I met with her, working on a relationship, because her marriage impacts how she feels on a day-to-day basis, and how she feels on a day-to-day basis is going to impact how she shows up at work. So while she came to me for that more career focus, and she wanted to organize her office and be held accountable for that, so we worked on that. Yesterday, we had to work on more of marriage and mindset. How do I want to show up so that it impacts the rest of my life peacefully and well and supports it? I have another client where years ago, she wanted to build an Airbnb. She was in the military. Still is, actually. She's in the military. She was also a baker. She wanted to build an Airbnb. And then while we're coaching, her and her husband are on the midst of getting a divorce. And so then we were focused on repairing the marriage. She built the Airbnb. She now lives in California, and they're together and they're doing well.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a spectrum, like you're saying, but they're goal focused. And usually they come to me because there's a career goal or a relationship goal, or a relationship separation. Those are usually the 3 big pillars that I attract.
Says, did you have 2 questions I got for you? Number 1, have you read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie?
I have not.
Oh,
it's on my list.
Listeners, hit that book. One of my favorites. Okay, some really simple, practical information. A lot of what you're saying is already. So this is why I say you'll be like, oh my God, we've done it. The second question is, were you into philosophy at all? Did you get into reading any philosophy?
No, what's funny is I never actually got into philosophy, but my husband's degree is in psychology and philosophy, so we do a lot of that in our house.
Oh my God, because that's what what you're doing is the Socratic inquiry. Socrates asked questions. And there's a whole. I believe Kevin Daly has a book out. I hope I'm not being wrong, Kevin. I want to say it's Socratic Selling. I want to say it's called Socratic Selling. And it's just asking all these questions and coming to the answer by questions. What a fantastic way to approach improving people's lives and to hear these stories.
Yeah.
It's the same way I try to do tests in college. Is I would go through the test once, answer everything I could off the top of my head.
Yeah.
First time through, and then the second time the harder ones to try that, and the third time the least hard ones and get through it that way. It's really it's almost like a process of elimination, right?
Yes.
It's like, and you're making people figure that out themselves.
And the goal is that eventually they can do this on their own. And I think that's another. I say this with love. I never want to poo-poo on the therapist world, because I think that they're phenomenal therapists, and I have great friends that are in that realm. But I want it to be an approach in which you can take these skills and apply them for the rest of your life, no matter what happens to you, because it just comes down to being mindful. I stand on these pillars: mindset, mindfulness, right? Being able to look at your thoughts without judging them. What is the thought I'm thinking? What is the feeling it's creating? Is it that the feeling that I want to feel? And is it creating the results that I want to create? So through time, that's why I work with clients for an entire year. They get this practice. They practice it. They start to learn. They start to tell me, I had Nandi in my head this weekend. I had you in my head this weekend, and I went through the process. Happens all the time. And then by the end of it, they know what to do, and they can do it on their own.
That is such a deep, amazing thought. Is that thoughts and what you're doing? I know you're saying that they could do it on their own, and you're right. People take what you're teaching them and they're going, okay, I can apply it now. But having you in their life and having anybody in their life gives us an opportunity to always have that frame of reference. It's like having a mentor or like an older brother or somebody who, a father, someone who you really respect, that the second you think of them, you immediately have all these, like this frame of good ideas. You have that relationship, you know, and that's like, if you've had a parent that's passed away or someone you love that's passed away, you still have that relationship with them because you have their voice. And that is so powerful.
Absolutely. It's definitely a compliment when I hear that. It warms my heart.
100%. So getting to your process. Let's say you're onboarding someone or you're getting to know them. We went through some questions about accountability and whatnot. What's like the life cycle here? Like you said, about a year.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking this is because you hear this a lot in fitness. It's like, oh, it takes 21 days to create a habit. And that is a big load of BS.
Yeah.
It might be where you start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where you start here, you know, it's like, well, now I'm starting to get into a rhythm of things, but things really don't start happening until about 3-4 months in till you start actually seeing the change. What do you see with those kind of things?
Yeah. So when I started with a 6-month package, and I really loved doing that. But I found that every single one of my clients were signing on for an additional 6 months because we needed more time or more things were coming up. Because again, full spectrum of life. Maybe we've cleaned up career and we feel great there, but then relationships popping up or friendships are popping up or whatever it is. Life happens. Life be lifing, as I like to say. Life be lifing sometimes.
I'm stealing it. Life be life. It do what it do.
It do what it do. And so we have different timelines, all of us. And it's also, as I was talking to you guys earlier, it's those neural pathways that we're trying to rebuild. When you are building a new neural pathway, it takes time. And the metaphor or imagery I use for that is doing construction on a road. When you're going from a 2-lane highway to a 4-lane highway, it goes down to 1 for a little bit. And it's annoying and it's congested. And that's what that process feels like when you're changing your thoughts. You know you're on the way to having that 4-lane highway. It's about to open up. But on the way to thinking the thought, I can do this, or it's possible for me to make $1 million, whatever it is, it's tight, it's frustrating, it's congested, you got all this drama in the brain, and you have to continue to think that thought until your highway is built. And so just it takes that time.
That's so
Love that analogy.
That's perfect.
That's a really good analogy.
Because that's what happens in fitness. You know, what happens is usually that first month is they'll lose a little bit of fat, but they'll gain some muscle, and they're like, well, the scale hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I understand the scale hasn't changed, but you've lost fat and gained muscle. It's like, well, the numbers, right? And you're trying to explain to them that's not what health is. It's not just that number scale.
Absolutely.
Let them understand that's part of the process. Like, listen, it's going to take a little time.
It's tough because you can't quantify the growth, right? Or I mean, I suppose there are ways you could figure it out, but a lot of the growth that you're seeing with your clients, it's not a number on a scale. No. You're not going, oh, you went from a 5 to a 6.
Nope.
Right?
No,
it's like a
how you
spiritual. So relationships.
Yes.
What are some things? Talk a little bit about that. What are some things that number one that you see, and then what are some like how do you approach that, and what are the pillars that you're like, oh, this is so important to focus on?
I think in relationships, as you're saying, that communication comes up for me. Communication is, I think, the number one thing that comes up. And even before I started coaching, as you're talking about voices in your head, my grandfather passed away 2 years ago, and I hear his voice in my head all the time. He and my grandmother had a fantastic relationship. And he would always tell me communication is so important. Communication is so important before I ever met my husband. And so that's something that I've carried with me. And it's often number one in relationships, whether I'm talking to someone where they've been in a relationship for a very long time, where they've been married for 20 years, or it's a new relationship and they're dating and they're like, I don't know how to tell him that what I'm looking for. I'm like, you tell him, you be honest, right? And so it's communication can be hard. I think honesty, is the subtext there is being honest about how we feel and being willing to be seen, being willing to I think that's the heart of it, being willing to be seen and being willing to let go of relationships that don't serve you, that aren't seeing you. I think that's what's really scary is when we get clear about what I want. It's then about when you're in a relationship, being willing to be clear about that with your partner. And there can be fear that comes up. What if my partner doesn't like this idea? What if they think I'm crazy? What if they leave me because of this idea? And so that keeps a lot of people small. They stay stuck and that keeps them out of alignment. So it's encouraging them to be honest and to be seen.
Now, do you find like it's hard for people to be honest with their significant other if they're not able to be honest with themselves first?
Oh, 100%.
Is that where you have to start usually?
You have to be honest with yourself. Yes, 100%. You have to know what you want first. Otherwise, you're going to be shaky. And I say the same thing in vision board parties when I host those. I tell people, before you even crack open a magazine, I would really love it if you just jot down what you want in your life first before you open up the magazine, because we can go in the world and the world can tell us what we want, but I want you to know what you want first. It is very easy to be like, oh, that looks nice. I'm going to take that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great to be inspired. But have you taken the time to just go within? What do I want? What's important to me? And at that foundation, coming to a person that you love with that sets the stage.
100%. It's almost, I read something earlier about this is the Quentin Tarantino method that he learned from, I think, Kubiak back in the day, is a lot of directors will tell you what they want out of their actors. Tarantino doesn't do that. The first take, he lets the actor do what was in the actor's head, because he's like, you'll never be able to see it as pure as what the actor wanted without telling them. So he lets them do it the first time through, and he's like, most of the time I let them sit because the actor has their own image in their head how this character is going to be played. So it's you like picking up that magazine before you do your ideas. It's like you're letting other things influence who you are and what you think you want.
So you're firing. This is a great point, Trip. You're firing off some knowledge bombs and some insight that I definitely appreciate, and I guarantee people on the podcast are going to appreciate. Let me throw a little tough question at you with that. Somebody's in a relationship with somebody they love, and they're trying to communicate. They have expressed communication with somebody and are not seeing progress, and maybe it's been that way for quite some time. How do they? What's the next step on that? They've tried. How do they approach that?
Yeah, I feel like we have some options. I love the word play. Whenever I'm working with clients, I always say, let's play with this. Let's play with this. Because I think it takes the pressure off. I think often we're like, I need to have the right answer. What's the right answer? What's the wrong answer? And I say there's no such thing as right or wrong. There's only what's best and most in alignment for you. That's it. No right or wrong, best and most in alignment for you. That's what we're looking for. And so we play to figure that out. So it might be that we need to try a different communication tactic, because I love Einstein's quoted with saying this: the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. So if you've been communicating in the same way again and again, expecting a different result, well, let's look at that. Maybe there's a different way we can communicate. Again, just spoke with a client about this yesterday. I was like, have you gotten right in front of him? Like, I need you to get right in front of his body and like you're saying, posture, stand up tall. We're not being combative, but we are being confrontational in that we're going to confront what is going on, not from a negative place, not from a bullying place, but hey, I am right here and I would like to speak to you. Check in with that person. Are they available to hear you in that moment? And then we get to play with some communication tactics. If from there that's not working, your person is not receptive, then we get to talk about boundaries, right? If you have spoken up, been honest, been clear repeatedly, and that person has agreed to the terms that you've set, right, or that you guys have come to a agreement, and they're falling short on that agreement, then we need to talk about revisiting it and setting boundaries and what that looks like. And boundaries don't have to be scary. It doesn't mean that the relationship has to end. Maybe something changes in your relationship and the way that you're showing up. Maybe it does end. And so we start to talk about those things.
So it's almost kind of like relationship troubleshooting. It's like, if A doesn't work, let's try B.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Everything is figure outable that's Marie Forleo.
I love that.
I'm putting that in the dictionary, figure outable.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's tough. You know, you're in a relationship with someone you love and you're trying to figure out how to communicate. And for me, I am I don't know how you are. I'm an over communicator. We are sitting down. We're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I may come off as the asshole, but sometimes I'm an asshole, but it's because I want to find the answer.
Yes.
What do you want? And then we can make apologies and let's be honest, we're all human. We're gonna make mistakes.
Absolutely.
We're gonna go through our waves and emotions, and it goes for business as well as personal.
Absolutely.
I do want to change gears a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got a super successful podcast.
Thank you.
I listen to it. It's awesome. You have a voice that translates very well to audio.
I appreciate that.
And listening. It's very calming. I mean, you get to the point. You enunciate great.
Thank you.
It's a great podcast. So how did the podcast start? Like, where'd your idea for this come from?
Fun backstory. When I was in high school, we took one of those aptitude tests, those tests where you figure out what career is best for you, and radio host came up for me.
Okay.
And right? Exactly. Of all the things. We did a project and we had to talk about the things, and I said hard no. I was like, I got in front of my class. I was like, this radio host came up for me, but it is not for me. I am not going to stand and talk into a radio all day. That sounds boring. And here we are, what is it? Probably 15, 20 years later, where it's like, oh, actually, I love this. This is so fun. It was right. And so I started the coaching business 5 years ago. And then COVID hit and I just wanted something else. I wanted another way to give back, another way to reach people. And I was doing weekly videos on my Instagram. Every Monday I was doing a video. And so I was like, how can I continue to put out content, but maybe reach more people and also gain a little bit more notoriety, some more presence, expertise. And so I decided to start a podcast. I saw some other people doing it at the time. I was like, that looks like fun. I want to try that. So I did. I went for it. And so here we are. And we're in season 5 now.
Let's go.
That's amazing. So has the structure of the podcast changed at all over those 5 years? Like the way you present it? Like, do you do scripts, unscripted? How's it all formatted? And how far has it come along since then?
It has basically stayed the same. It's very mom and pop. I started on Audacity. I still use that as my recording platform because that's what I used when I was a kid trying to be a music connection. Be a singer-songwriter. I was using Audacity and GarageBand, so that's what I started with. And then I use Buzzsprout. And then what I do is usually I have inspired moments. And so anytime I have an inspired moment, I have sticky notes everywhere. And so I just write down my idea of what the podcast can be. And then I use Monday.com. I formulate sort of bullet points. I'm not great with scripts. I like to use the word channeling, but don't, because that can be a little too woo for people, but it just feels very intuitive when I'm speaking. I also do a lot of reading, so I think a lot of it gets just internalized, and so I hit bullet points, and I just kind of go from there and flow. And then I have intro, outro, put it on Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has AI, thank you, Buzzsprout, and comes out every Monday.
Do you go back and listen to your episodes anymore?
I think I've listened to like 2 or 3 of my episodes. When I first started, I refused to listen to them. I would record them, send them out. I'm like, that's good. Nope. Don't need to listen to it. I believe that what I put out is fine. And so far it's worked. But now I'm going back and I'm listening to the most popular ones, and I'm going to do spin-offs of them, kind of dig a little bit deeper on the most popular episodes. So I'm going back and I'm listening to those now.
So you said you listen to podcasts to yourself. Yeah. What do you love about what is it about the podcast you listen to? If you could, put your finger on it, what is it giving you? The podcast. The podcast
that I listen to?
Yeah, not the one you do, the one you listen to.
The ones that I listen to, I love that they give me information, they inspire me, they give me value. That's what I'm looking for. Whether it's normally 2 buckets. I either want to learn or I want to be entertained. It's kind of it. So I'm either podcasts for me are learning, books are a little bit of both. I have entertainment and I have learning in there. So I love learning. It's one of my values. My top 5 values is learning. I love to learn. So anytime I can gather more information, for me, it's my way to give more information to my clients. As much as I can learn, I can pass on to them.
I absolutely love that. I mean, that's the whole point of this, and why I think a lot of people are getting into it, is they can provide value back immediately. No payments at all.
Yeah.
Listen to it or not, or whatnot. What do you think, or why do you think podcasts are getting so popular, especially the past 3 years?
I think because there are so many different learning styles, and people are exploring that a little bit more. I feel like we've been talking about that for the past 10 years of are you an auditory? Are you a visual learner? Are you kinesthetic? And so I think more people are exploring that, and there is more acceptance, especially with this newer generation, all the generations that are coming out, of being able to learn in different ways. And I think that people are gravitating towards that. And I think that there's a human piece that I really appreciate. And that's why sometimes when I buy a book, I'll also get the audio version of it, because I really love to hear the author in their own voice. I love to hear, I have Michelle Obama's book, I think it's Becoming, both in hardback and on my Audible, because I love the inflection in the voice, and I love to hear just the feeling and the passion. And I think that the podcast brings that to life in a way that I love blogging, but blogging is photos and words, whereas a podcast, again, it's that emotion piece that connects with the teaching and the learning.
It's almost like an extra dimensional piece to the puzzle, right? Like you read something, it's like now it's great because you're making your own images in your head, your own thoughts. But when there's a voice behind what you're saying, it gives it texture.
Absolutely, yeah.
There was this, what was it? There was a book, it was called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And there was a, what do they call it? Not the guy who reads it. What's the audio?
The narrator.
Narrator, thank you. I was like, what's the word? The narrator, Jeremy Irons, and his voice is amazing. And I accidentally clicked on the wrong person, and somebody else was narrating it, and I was like, this isn't that good. It's crazy how somebody who reads the story and feels the story makes all the difference. Yeah, authenticity.
It really does.
If the author's not reading the audiobook and someone else is taking it, they have to bring that texture and that.
They got to bring it.
It's what actors do, with
Absolutely.
characters.
Yes. Absolutely.
What are you doing for your workouts? You're obviously in fantastic shape.
Thank you.
You guys can't see on the podcast. We will have video at some point. What are you doing for your workouts?
I do a mix. I'm a busybody, as my grandmother calls me. I cycle, so I have a Peloton. I used to be a cycling instructor, so that's where that started back in college. Okay. And then when I moved out here, I opened up the DTC cycle bar. It was the first cycle bar in Colorado. I did that for a little bit, and then I was a bar teacher. Did that for about a year. So I just do a little bit of everything. I found pole dancing a year ago, and that's so much fun.
Nice.
I love
workout.
it. Oh, it's such a workout. It's such an upper body workout.
Yeah.
And I'd like to get into tennis. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of the outfits or I actually want to play, but I'm recently into tennis. I have some tennis outfits now. Now I just got to sign up.
What about golf? No golf?
My husband wants me to get into golf. He's like, we
right.
should golf. I'm like, okay. Again, busybody. I like to dance. I like really cardio. I like bouncing around, but I will try golf. I like putt-putt. That one's fun.
That's always a good time.
I like putt-putt.
Are there any good Speaking of putt-putt, I haven't found any good putt-putts anymore. All the good putt-putts went away, and now they're all just flat, corporate-looking putt-putts.
With the ones with the porta potty looking water, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Disgusting. It's like, we're going to make the water more blue. It's like, you put food dye in the water.
Well, I do like that.
There's a few around here. There's one in Arvada and there's one in Lakewood.
So you opened up the cycle bar. You were the general manager or head instructor?
No. I was an instructor. I was just part of the opening team.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we all worked for Exponential at one
That's
point.
amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
All
worked,
of us did.
I worked at Row House.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then I had never done it before, and I loved I'm a music guy, so I loved the playlist.
Yeah.
You know, I'd vibe on like creating the beats per minute, and man, it was it was so much fun with when you incorporate the music into it.
Yes, I do appreciate that. That was my favorite thing about bar, was everything was to music. So anytime you have a workout that has music, I will be there. Zumba, dance, pole, music, I'm there. Love that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, kind of getting back to the podcast thing real fast. So what's the future like for your podcast? I mean, you're 5 years deep. You just got to 10,000 downloads, which, probably 5% of all podcasts can only say they've done that. Right. So what's next for your podcast? Where's it going to go?
I am looking to start having guests. I just started talking to a friend of mine, and it was funny. We went out to dinner a few weeks ago. It was a grand opening for, I think it's called Wolf and Wildflower. Hopefully I'm remembering that. It just opened up in Wheat Ridge. Cute place. And we're sitting down, and I told her, I was like, I think I'm going to start having guests. Would you like to be on the podcast? She has a chalk and artistry business. And her handle's Let's Chalk About Love, little shout out from my friend there. And so she was like, I would love to be on your podcast. I've been waiting on you to ask me that. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you'd been waiting. So now I'm going to start having some of my friends. So maybe I'll have you guys on.
Love it.
Yes. Yeah. I want to start having some guests on, start spreading the word a little bit, start collaborating a little bit more on the podcast.
What if there was a way to do what you do with your clients on the podcast? Now, granted, I know there's privacy, that people, what you do is one-on-one, but man, would that be something?
I've thought about it. Because all of my clients, all of their sessions are recorded. So I've thought about, with their permission, going back and taking clips from our sessions and then just putting them on the podcast as well, which is putting that back in my ear. So maybe it's time to do that.
That'd be great to backlink those episodes and help your SEO out a little bit too. It's like, hey, like this is part 2 of this. This is why this worked out for this client. This is what you can do, and that's a great idea all across the board.
I always learn from watching other people learn too. Like, especially I'm thinking about music. Like, if someone's learning a riff or something on guitar, I can see where they're struggling, and I can go, oh, I can get that. So I'm just picturing that as like watching somebody else kind of like have that transformative journey, like that aha moment.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh my gosh, aha.
It's very helpful when you're in a group coaching setting and you can hear somebody go through that. It really does help you to reflect of, oh crap, I'm doing that, or oh, okay, cool, I haven't been doing that. I actually have been doing this, and you get to we compare. It's just how human brains work, and we try not to compare and despair, but just as human beings on the planet, we compare, and so it's a really great way for us to learn when we're in that group setting.
Is there one, and I'm sure there's been a lot, is there one story you can think of, example, that somebody who's made a huge transformational change? Is there anyone that sticks out at all? Or?
Yeah, I feel like that's all of my clients. All of them make really big changes. But the one that I've been working with the longest that sticks out to me, when she came to me, she was recently divorced and starting a brand new business. She was building a smoothie shop, brick and mortar. She lives out in Pennsylvania. And going through that, where she is now, I think she has 2, if not 3, physical locations now. She has at least 2 now. Wow. She now has a team. She's been dating a really wonderful person and has really up-leveled in so many ways. And it's been beautiful to watch her grow, because it takes that daily effort. And it takes believing in yourself, trusting yourself, having your own back consistently. And she has done that to, again, where she has several locations now and has traveled to Bali and traveled to the Maldives. And she's like, after her last breakup, she's like, I'm just going to go on a trip. Right. And so now she's so empowered, and it's beautiful to watch that. And she's funny because she'll tell me, she's 2 years ago, she's like, on my birthday, I watch our coaching session from the year before. So she'll meet with me on her birthday. We didn't this year, but the last 2 years we'll meet on her birthday. And what she'll do is she'll watch the video from the year before on her birthday and just watch how much she's grown. So she stands out to me because she shows up. She shows up, and those are my favorite women. Women that are like, I'm ready to show up. I'm ready to live my best life. I have this one most precious life, and I want to go all in on it.
How does it make you feel? Does it recharge your battery when you hear those kind of things?
Yes.
And you see those, how does it make you feel?
1,000%. It charges my battery. It just fires me up. It gets me so excited. And it's whether I'm working with women or little kids or whoever it is, if I can pour into you and that lifts you up, that just is everything for me. I imagine being like a little light and just walking around, just tapping on people, and it just brightens them up, like a little light fairy. And that's how I imagine my energy is just I just want to wake people up to what is already inside of them, just helping them remember that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember my choir teacher. I had never sung before in my life. I remember one specific day. It was a random day, and I remember one specific compliment. And I took that compliment, and it was all I needed to feel confident enough to know that one day I could be a professional performer. And I think about I think about what you're saying in that opportunity as a teacher, as to say one thing and to truly believe in somebody, not a fake belief, not like this inauthentic, I believe you can do this, but to see the vision and to know it is everything. And man, that's what gets me up. That's why I love this, because I can tell you're in the same boat.
Yeah. And people feel it. I say that I got this from Coach Stacey Bayman. She says it's your BO. Your energy is your BO. And I love that, because it doesn't matter what you're saying. If you are spiritually, mentally not vibing with what you are saying, your BO is going to show. People are going to feel that. They're going to be like, something is off. Something is off here. I don't know what, but something is off. And so you're right. You have to truly believe what you're saying, and you feel that when someone believes in you versus when they're being fake. We feel that. We know that.
Go ahead. No, go for it. I had a guy who came in here the other day, had a very short, he was trying to look for the church upstairs. He was in significant chronic pain, had been in it for years, many back surgeries and just all sorts of pain down. And we had a short conversation, and he ended up tearing up, and he's a tough guy, big beard. And as soon as he started tearing up, he put his glasses back on. We shook hands, and I told him, I was like, listen, man, your pain is a gift. I said, you're sharp. I said, how much sharper are you than I? He goes, yeah. He's like, I pay attention to everything. I said, because when you're in chronic pain, you are sharp. You right? Aware. When you're not in pain, you're complacent. You're just going through life. So I said, you have a superpower. You have the ability to understand other people. And I mean, saying that thing to him, for him to realize I recognized it, it was the most. He's like. So what my friend told me is correct. I am a martial artist. I said, your power's here.
Yeah.
And dude, it was just like. Whew, to see that and to see him walk out, I was like, let's go. He was going to go change. He was going to go say some stuff today to whoever he ran into.
Oh, absolutely. I think a parallel for all of us here, as no matter what your life coach, fitness coach, what have you, is instilling those little moments of confidence, getting the aha moments, which are rare, right? And then when we get that feeling back, like, oh, I get it now, or I'm getting somewhere. That's what we feed off of, and that's what gets us going. But to all you people listening right now, we see a lot of the black and the sludge up front, and to see a little bit of clean wipe come through is just so important to us, and that's what keeps us going as coaches. It's long hours helping these people out, and finding these finding these little things.
So with your podcast, that was awesome. With your podcast now, you're going to be having guests on. Are there any other sectors of your business? Obviously, it's thriving. Is there any other side projects you're working on, or is this just your baby that is just cruising along?
I feel like there's always always side projects. I'm a very multi-passionate human being. So I have my podcast right now. I coach one-on-one. I also have a group coaching course that I'm enrolling right now, Lifestyle Design, which is a lot of fun. And then I've been talking to friends about some other ideas that I have that would be, I don't know if they're going to be spin-offs of the brand, if it's going to be completely separate, but what's been on my heart is bringing coaching to teenage girls. Something in that area, because the conversation I've been having with friends is that I was in Girl Scouts, and I was in Girl Scouts till probably middle school, and then my mom said, you can dance or you can do Girl Scouts. I chose dance. And usually around middle school, high school is when it stops being, and I say this because it's generally the stereotype, not because it's true, it stops being cool around high school, middle school. If anybody is listening and you are a Girl Scout in high school, you are still cool. But normally we like drop off around that time, and so that's where I want to kind of bridge the gap and figure out what those women need, or gentlemen, right? Of just the things that we don't learn in school, balancing a checkbook, how do you write a resume, how do you write a cover letter? I just searched that stuff when I got to college, how to write a cover letter. I want to teach them that. How do you dress for something like that? How do you start a business? Doing a babysitter business camp. I have built that out before, where we help girls then build their own babysitting business at 12, 13, 14. They have business cards. They can start a business and learn how to manage money at 14 years old instead of 21. So that's been on my heart. And I don't know where that's going to lead me to, but that, and then I also have Denver Fempreneurs Club, which is a local meetup group.
Whew.
So why don't we take this time to plug everything you're doing? Your name your podcast where you can find it, your website where we can find it, just everything about you that the listeners are obviously going to want to look you up.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. My handle on Instagram is at Nandi, Nandi.Camille, spelled the traditional way. My website is nandicamille.com, and then the podcast is Believe Like a Boss. It's on Spotify, and it's also on Apple Podcasts. And then the Denver Fempreneurs Club, my husband and I joked, he's like, I don't know if everybody's going to know what fempreneurs are. It's like female entrepreneurs. I don't know how that's hard.
Made sense to me.
I've had a few men, try to be in the club. I'm like, this is clearly for women, gentlemen. I was like, maybe I'll create a co-ed one then for you all. But that one is Denver Fempreneurs Club. That's on Meetup.
Awesome. Do you guys have any events coming up for that?
Yes, actually today we have a potluck picnic today. And then next week we're talking about tech. So we do a bi-weekly clubhouse call, and we're going to talk about different things. We talked about telling your brand story last week. Next week we're going to talk about what is the technology you're using, whether it's a microphone or ring lights or Buzzsprout or something to schedule out your social media. What is the tech you're using? Because sometimes people don't know what's available to them. So having that conversation.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for coming on board. Thank you for messaging me back on Instagram. What a great conversation. You're doing so many amazing things. You're killing it with your podcast. Again, congratulations on the 10,000 downloads.
Thank you so much.
You have one of the most aesthetically pleasing Instagram accounts I've ever seen.
Thank you. Graphic designer came up as well, so I'm always trying to be on brand.
That's a great compliment.
I appreciate that.
I just like to point out how well she accepted that compliment.
Oh, I've had to work on that too. No, I've had to work on that a long time. Just saying thank you.
She accepted that so well.
Thank you so much.
It really is. It's beautiful. I like the greens that you use. A lot of our branding comes from just color palettes alone. And you chose some really great color palettes.
Yeah, thank you.
Your podcast is great. You did great on here. We're so happy to have you. Make sure you guys check her out on Instagram. Make sure you guys are checking out her podcast as well. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us for this 20th episode. Make sure if you guys want to buy my book, there's only 4 sales, so hook a brother up here. You can find it on Kindle for ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com, Health Profiling, author Trip Parks, editor Brett Hutari. If you guys are interested in genetic testing, we have a code APT to get 30% off of geneplanet.com/USA. That's geneplanet.com/USA, code APT for 30% off. As well as make sure you guys are going to Colivile Labs, our supplement company. We have some great products out there. I just bought myself some gummy vitamins for our brand. Can't wait to try those things out. And then make sure you guys are subscribing, and telling your friends, family, neighbors, dogs, cats, friends, squirrels, family, everything about this podcast and about our beautiful guest podcast as well. Thank you guys again for the 20th episode of Health High Water. Peace.
See you later.